Okay, hello everyone. Here we are, day 3. I'm wearing yellow to
Hello.
raise the energy.
Yes.
So give us a hello in the chat line. Help calm our nerves.
Let us know that you can hear us and
But we
see us
love
okay
this
too.
actually. It's all new technology, but it's been really amazing to learn through this and share our knowledge and really just feel the energy of the group, just watching all your comments and questions. And when we answer your questions, we get into our strength and looking at the Facebook page and how everybody's interacting. It's just incredible. So I hope you're enjoying, you're learning. Please let us know what you think in either the chat or the chat in this or in the comments on Facebook or by email. Remember, the email address is hormonechallenge@higherhealthcenter.com. And so we want to hear how everybody's doing. Let us know what you can in the chat. Ask us your burning, hormone, energizing questions, libido, or hot flashes, or we can still talk about sleep. It's all interconnected, which you'll hear more today as we go through. So let me just see here. Kira, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm ready to get energized today. And yeah, it's been so great to see all of your homework responses too in the Facebook group. That has been so great. And it's so nice to see all the different mantras, and hopefully you guys are seeing that benefit of kind of setting that mindset for the day. And yesterday it was all about balance. And then today we will be hitting on energy. So that's what all of our things will be on today. And then I'm just looking at the comments here. Okay.
I'm here. Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
No, that's okay. You're all good. I was just talking about the mantras. So some of the really great ones, and we can even go through some of the big analogies that we've kind of gone through in yesterday and in the first day. So remember that as we go through even the hormones that we're going to chat about today, that Goldilocks, remember everything is going to be in balance. So today we'll be touching on a lot of the high and the low symptoms, but remember we're always trying to get to that balanced Goldilocks middle position with that clean bed sheet. Right, Dr. Tara? So it's all flat and around.
I love the analogies. Yeah, I was recapping what we talked about. So Goldilocks, the bed sheet, the gas tank, the shower head.
The shower head.
Oh, and my favorite, the chest, the 2 humps of the hormone phases. Nobody drew that for, so
only you did.
Want to see your pictures, but really practicing this flow and understanding the phases, it's so important. And I think actually, Kira, it would be worth right now just recap the phases of the days, like day 1 to 14, 14 to day 28. Yeah. Super important. So in simple terms, just like yesterday, how I did the simplified shower head, what's the simplified estrogen progesterone phase?
Yeah. Okay. So let's simplify this down. So it's 2 main phases. So from day 1, which is your first day of full flow, to about day 14 when you ovulate, that's your follicular phase. That's your estrogen dominant phase. We'll be going through that more today about estrogen, but that's typically where you feel really good. Estrogen's high, and then ovulation to your next period. That's our luteal phase. So about day 14 to day 28. That's when progesterone is our highest hormone. So that's the dominant hormone. We do still make estrogen though. So it's a very high hormone phase. So we're breaking those down into your estrogen and your progesterone phases.
Perfect. So that's the chest. The one breast is estrogen, one breast is progesterone. Estrogen linked with follicular and progesterone luteal. And so men and women. All right, going through the homework, and I'm so happy. At first, when we were going through this worksheet, we were unsure where people would take it, and you've done a beautiful job. Just all your worksheets and the individuals and your creative spin, it's amazing. And for those who aren't on Facebook, we're going to share more of this within our emails so that you can see and catch all the questions that are happening there. And so let's get into setting the mindset for today, an energy mindset. Just do a run on power words of things that you think of when you visualize your best energy. So watch the chat line grow, just input. I actually had one client in a visit say to me, I don't understand the mindset. I don't understand how to visualize that. And that's perfect. I said, great. I'm so glad you clarified that, because if you can't clarify it, how are you going to get there, right? And so I actually think that person's on here today. So thank you for asking that question. And then I went through a practice of, okay, so remember when you were a kid and you were driving in a car, or it doesn't have to be in a car, but the game where you have to follow a theme, and just whether it's cereal boxes or places to visit or words that start with the letter C, you have to go in a rhythm. Right? So I want you to go in a rhythm of positive, energizing words. And this isn't to be fluffy, right? This is to really plant the seed for what is energy. I see this every day in my practice. Some people get really stuck. And like I said, I've been there, stuck and cycling and just can't break out of it. And when I see it in clients, I know exactly where they're at, right? And so we need to break that. We need to get out of that. So let's go through here. We'll share some of our favorite mantras from the chat line. And then there's a few that we're going to practice transforming. Okay.
Yeah, great. Okay, so I loved this one. I give my beautiful body the balance and grace that it deserves. And I just love that word grace too, because I think, like, especially with these mantras that we're saying, like, words hold energy, again, that energy, the energizing today, but just the word, the energy. So the balance and the grace that it deserves.
Exactly. Yeah. Your body listens, your brain listens to the words, to your self-talk. And so I'm sure all of us can agree, we can easily get into a negative, self-conscious thought process, and your body hears that, your cells hear that. So let's change that, right? Let's change it together. It's just so, so important. And so the mantras that we're reading today are from yesterday. So this is about balance, but start inputting a mindset for today for energy. Just practice, write it down on paper, or write it down or type it in the chat. Practice, practice, practice this. And so my favorite was, my body, my hormones are rebalanced and I am aging gracefully. So this person really put themselves in where they want to be, not where they're headed, right? Well, so we want to work on where you're headed. But a lot of times we say, I'm working towards, or, so just put yourself there that you already are. And so that brings us to a few that we can transform. So one person said, balance is key. And that is really great. And now let's expand it a little bit further. What does balance look like? Visualize it further. And so maybe we could expand that to, actually, I'll give an example for me. I said, now I have to remember, I am balancing my work and home life to nurture my hormone balance, right? So how do I balance home and work? Well, one of the things I notice is, running a business and being at home, I can often I get diverted to my phone or to something, or constantly thinking of what I have to do. And so what I want to practice from what we're all sharing here together is differentiating. When I'm at work and I'm focused. And when I'm at home and I'm present. So that just is a step forward, just clarifying further, what does balance mean?
Yeah, and there was another one that was similar to that, because they said, I'm working on balancing my work stress from home. Which I think is such a everyone's probably dealing with this right now, because so many people are working from home in the past year. So it's really hard you have to kind of create those boundaries. But instead of saying, I am working on it, okay, what does that look like? Like, what does balancing my stress and my home life look like? So maybe it's, I am at ease at home after my workday. So it's like, when the workday is done, I am at ease and I am enjoying my home. So yeah, something like that, to just switch it over.
Yeah, that word your body would then hear, ease, right?
Ease, yeah.
Great. Okay.
So
another, just a reminder, some of the questions have been amazing on Facebook and we haven't been able to get to all of them yet. So if we haven't answered you yet, don't worry. It's just, we're going through answering what we can, when we can. And so we will definitely be answering everything. So then, yeah. And I'm going to transition into presentation mode again to get to our topic today of energizing. And so
as we do that, I am going to jump in again with our quick medical disclaimer. If you guys are just joining us today for the first time, everything that we are sharing is for educational purposes. educational and informational purposes. So we're not giving medical advice. So if anything piques your interest and you want to get more information, then bring it to your healthcare practitioner, or you can message us privately if you don't have one. So that.
All right, I'm waiting for my camera to come up here. I hope that a slide pops up, but I know you can see this slide. So energizing hormones and mitochondria. So the theme being all about energizing, we'll be highlighting and discussing testosterone, estrogen, thyroid metabolism, and my absolute favorite, mitochondria, the powerhouse of every cell. We are going to energize your hormones.
Yeah, so this is further to yesterday. So yesterday we were really talking about restoring, and we were talking about that yin. So building that yin, that restorative energy, and we're basically rooting our yin in order to nourish our yang. And yang is really that expanding, energizing energy. So that's where we are headed today.
Okay. So your energy team, your calming hormones, let's do a quick recap. We talked about progesterone, cortisol, DHEA, and melatonin. And then today it's testosterone, estrogen, morning cortisol, thyroid. So TSH is your thyroid stimulating hormone, and your mitochondria. Okay, I'm really sorry here. I can't get back to my visual of us. Can you see me, Kira?
Yeah, I can see you. So you're good. And I can see the slides.
Okay, I just have to.
There we are.
And you can still see me.
Yeah, I can see you and I can see the slides.
Okay, I don't know what's happening here. Okay, I'm gonna.
I think if you just roll the slide deck, it should be fine. And then if you guys can just comment in the chat, just tells that you can see us.
I just can't see anything. This is, okay, while I figure this out, can you just check the chat and just look at a few questions?
And this is a good question from Bobby saying, I find working from home so hard with the kids home. How do you find transition? And it is, I mean, it's definitely a challenge these days. And I think it's finding some way to like create some sort of a boundary. So whether it's, you know, if there's a way to kind of finish your workday at a certain time, and then you're like, okay, now it's time to have dinner with the kids, and that you're able to kind of create that boundary. Of course, if it's, and I don't know what your specific situation is, because sometimes kids are able to kind of like do their own work if they're homeschooling, and you can kind of have a bit of time yourself, and sometimes you can't. So you're basically doing the best that you can, but at least creating, and we talked about this last night, like even with the, yesterday with the 8 p.m. screen time. So even if you are setting, at least you're setting like that as a boundary, right? So if there's some type of time in the between like the work and the dinner and the evening time, yeah, hopefully you can kind of find something there. And then I'm just looking at another question. Mood and energy. I eat well and have mindful practices, but mood and energy fluctuations have been most challenging aspect of mid-40s. Yes. So this is definitely the mid-40s can be a time, and I think we touched on this maybe yesterday or the first day of that kind of perimenopausal transition. So that's that whole kind of decade of time before you hit that final menstrual period, and hormones are fluctuating greatly. So today we'll be touching more on estrogen and its effect to mood and energy, mood and energy. And yesterday we really touched on progesterone. And so that one is also, generally we get lower progesterone levels. So that can really affect the mood because remember, it's our calming, it's our restorative hormone. So that was really causing us it can increase anxiety levels, you have trouble sleeping. So that can really affect mood and energy. So about yesterday, today, tomorrow will help to kind of balance those swings out, but there's definitely a connection there. And then, oh yeah, irritable. Yeah. And it's kind of like, I mean, it's similar to that premenstrual symptoms that women can feel, but I like to think of it as even more exaggerated in that perimenopausal time. And that's just because the hormones are fluctuating so much more. So having some grace, bringing some grace to yourself, having some self-compassion with yourself while you're going through those ebbs and flows, and then also bringing in some of these like foundational pieces. So really making sure you're getting that sleep, getting the exercise in that we're talking about, kind of doing a lot of the practices that we'll be talking about, plus the nutrition stuff. So far, we've really, as a recap, we've really chatted about healthy fats as the cholesterol is the building block. We have chatted about fiber. So we chatted about flax yesterday as really a phytonutrient, a phytoestrogen, which is going to have all of the, it's not going to have all of the phytoestrogen and the fiber benefits. So that's where you can add in things like the other seeds that we talked about. Someone wrote hemp seeds in there, chia seeds if you can tolerate them, other nuts and seeds. Psyllium husk is a great fiber source. And then from the phytoestrogen, soy products like tempeh, edamame, and things like that. So Dr. Tara,
I'm back. I am so sorry. I don't know what happened there. But it sounds like you you were answering
some questions.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay.
I think we're all good.
Okay, so let's just carry on then. We'll start in at our guiding questions for today. And we had just recapped before I left, we had recapped the energy team. So, and restoring to energize. And then we're just getting into a reminder about yin and yang. So as you do that, Dr. Kira, I will share the screen again.
Yeah. So I was saying how yesterday we were focusing all on the yin, the nourishing, the building. So that's the yin and the yang energy. The yang is the expansive, energetic energy. So that is where we're going today. And these are our kind of guiding questions for today. So we are going to cover how to energize your hormones, how thyroid metabolism affects energy, how do mitochondria affect hormone health and energy? What are your mitochondria? You guys might not know what those are, but we're going to share with you all about those and how do they change over the life cycle? How can we optimize our testosterone and energy? And how do we detoxify excess estrogen? And some great areas that we'll be covering are antioxidant health for hormone balance. We'll be chatting about melatonin like we did yesterday and other ones, thyroid, testosterone, estrogen, and the serotonin link, and then cortisol again.
So let's go back to your roots, just this energy of a child running through a sprinkler, right? And when you are young, as we age, our mitochondria decrease. And so really understanding cellular health, which might be new to you when it comes to hormone balance. And so cellular health is, again, we are all trillions of cells. Every cell in our body has mitochondria. And so when we're young, we have more mitochondria, more active mitochondria, not necessarily more cells. Based on size, okay, we have less cells, but we have more mitochondria when we're young. And so then as we age, that amount decreases. And it pairs to what we've said previously too about antioxidant health and oxidative stress. So, as we go about our day and our life, we're constantly quenching oxidants. We need healthy food, we need rest, we need clean air and just micronutrients to really help our cellular health and to minimize oxidative stress. And so our mitochondria are the powerhouse of every cell. So your cell is the car, and then the mitochondria, love my analogies again, the mitochondria would be the motor, right? And so, and the motor uses gas. So really the mitochondria make ATP, which is like your gas for the car. So we want your cells working really well. We want you to have that ATP to stimulate hormone production. And so what are your mitochondria? They're just a little tiny component in every cell that guides the ship. And they work by creating ATP that stimulates your mitochondrial function. And so early on, as a naturopathic doctor, I talked a lot about adrenal fatigue. It was just a common thing. And, you know, on a scale of healthy and vibrant health to an end stage adrenal problem being Cushing's or Addison's, naturopathically, we understand, okay, a person coming in with fatigue doesn't have Cushing's or Addison's, those end stage diseases. So, but we know that maybe they're exhausting their stores, maybe they're utilizing their resources to the point of getting depleted. And I would say in some ways, the way conventional medicine and naturopathic medicine look at fatigue are a bit different. So I remember my doctor actually saying, yeah, you know, adrenal fatigue, a lot of patients come in and talk about that, but it's just not what we treat. It isn't. So they would treat Cushing's or Addison's, but naturopathically, we are treating the beginning stage. We're treating you at this, you know, beginning of the spectrum of the child running through the sprinkler, right? We want to enhance that health. And so taking adrenal fatigue one step further, the more I build and evolve my interest in cellular health through, you know, I really love intravenous vitamin therapy. And I look at it as the most basic treatment you can do because you're getting those micronutrients into your cells. So adrenal fatigue for me has now become mitochondrial deficiency. In simple terms. So us stimulating your mitochondria to support your organ systems like your adrenal system, which makes your hormones, just makes a lot of sense to me. I'd love your questions about this. Ask about mitochondria, ask about cellular health, and just what resonates with you about what I've just said.
I love that. And you know, what's so fascinating too, is that the oocytes in our ovaries actually have more mitochondria than any other part of our body. So, and ovulation, which happens each month, requires so much energy. So it requires all of that ATP that's made in those mitochondria. So they're really at like the root of all these, the hormone health that we've been chatting about. And like Dr. Tara said, like it's where most of the hormones are being produced. So like that cholesterol that we talked about is being like shuttled into the mitochondria, whether that's in the adrenal glands and it's then making cortisol, or it's making DHEA, or it's going into the like ovary in the corpus luteal cells and making progesterone or testosterone, which then converts to estrogen. So it's really, really so fascinating. And like she was saying too, with all the, how they're so sensitive to oxidative damage. So that's why our ovaries are so sensitive to oxidative damage as well.
Mm-hmm. And while we were coming up with what would be the most important topic to focus on when it comes to hormone balance, and energy just seemed to be the common denominator, right, of across the board. So addressing energy is going to, by association, address all of the other hormone concerns that we see. I came across this word, this term that I love, mitochondrial endocrinology, right? So I know it's a little technical, but endocrinology would be all your hormone balance, right? And mitochondria is what we've just said about cellular health. And so take a look at all the areas that can be affected from mitochondrial endocrinology. So the synthesis of your hormones, your vitamin D status. And throughout this past year and a half through, you know, the pandemic, I have tested much more vitamin D than ever before, even in people that I would never suspect it. And I've been really surprised at who comes back as low. And so exploring the hormone links, exploring cholesterol and body weight, and just how are you taking your vitamin D? There's a lot to be said there. And there is a link between vitamin D is a cholesterol, right? And cholesterol is the building block. Our cholesterol, it's the building blocks to your hormones. So fat, adipose tissue, we will talk about how estrogen accumulates in your hips, right? And your fatty tissue, whereas cortisol imbalances are more in your stomach area. And fertility, absolutely, we take a mitochondrial approach. Diabetes and blood sugar, which pairs with cortisol, as we've talked about. So really, this topic is fascinating, and we just want to help you understand this. And thyroid.
Yeah.
Okay. One question that has come up a lot in the chat line and just overall is, mitochondrial hormones, brain, and anti-aging. And so this, you know, if I were to pick one disease that I would be most worried about, Alzheimer's would definitely be in there. And the really interesting thing about Alzheimer's is that mitochondrial and hormone health are protective. And so I remember reading one book about the end of Alzheimer's, so the cure to Alzheimer's. And it talks about how there's no one cause of Alzheimer's. There's three, and we need to get to those three. And those three are toxicity, micronutrient deficiency, and inflammation. And I loved reading that because, wow, that's everything we treat, right? Those are the roots to every single thing. And so your foundations, let's address that. Let's address your micronutrient levels. So stimulate, and micronutrients will nourish your cells, nourish your mitochondria. Toxicity builds to inflammation, right? And with toxicity, liver health, estrogen dominance, those things come into play. So if we focus on detoxification, reducing inflammation, antioxidant therapy, and stimulating your mitochondria, that will build your hormones, and that is incredibly protective to end stage diseases like Alzheimer's, right? And so research shows a protective role of estrogen and testosterone specific to Alzheimer's. And I'll just read you a bit of the research there. So 2/3 of Alzheimer's disease patients are women. And I would say women are more prone to hormone imbalances.
Definitely.
And so it's caused by the drop of sex hormones after menopause. That's been proposed to be the #1 risk factor. So similarly, the decrease of circulating testosterone levels with aging may also increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease in men. And so testosterone is the most dominant hormone in men. And so that puts them at more risk. Women, just their hormones are more active across the board. And so that significant drop causes the increased risk factor. So any age, we've said, right, is you can stimulate your hormones because your adrenal glands also make your hormones. So bringing it back again to stimulate your cells, support the health of your mitochondria to support the production of your hormones. We can then get into, in menopause and andropause, there are bioidentical hormones, and some people in the group can share their experience on that. We're not talking about that here. There are options. There are botanicals that we do to support your hormones. But today and this week, we are really getting you back to the simple steps, simple strategies that you can do.
Yeah. I love that. And I feel like this is, I know yesterday I said that progesterone was one of my favorite hormones, but I feel like this is showing why estrogen is one of my favorite hormones too, because of that cognitive protective feature that estrogen has for us. And exactly what Dr. Tara is saying is that that risk of dementia increases post-menopause when we lose that estrogen. So that's why, and all of that comes back to that root of that mitochondrial health. So exactly. So how are we going to support those mitochondria with antioxidants and things like that, which we're going to get more into. But yeah, that's fascinating research, I think.
And then mood, there's a lot of questions about mood. And so remember, pardon?
Oh, sorry. No, I was just saying that I was touching on that when this wasn't working that well, because I was just saying that there's that big estrogen link with like serotonin, and then when those levels are fluctuating either in PMS or what we were talking about was how more pronounced that becomes in perimenopause and then menopause when it drops off, that there is definitely that estrogen and progesterone, because we're talking about the progesterone being the restorative calming, but that estrogen decrease at the fluctuation can really affect mood too.
Great. My computer had a mitochondrial malfunction.
Malfunction, but you booted it back up.
Yeah. Okay. Great topic, blending in melatonin and mitochondria. So this is again speaking to restore to recharge.
Yeah, and we were saying we went over melatonin yesterday, and we were just chatting about how it has so much more than just helping us with sleep, but sleep is so important. And that's because it's such a key antioxidant. Like, it has a huge antioxidant action in the body. So it really supports those mitochondria. It prevents any damage from oxidative stress at that level. And I also, mentioned yesterday how the ovaries are like bathed in melatonin. So that is why, and that's why we want to promote that melatonin production. So again, sleep is at the foundation of that, of building the melatonin, and then the light and the dark that we talked about. So the light in the morning and the dark at night to really support that melatonin and support your mitochondria.
Yes, sleep heals everything, they say.
Yeah.
And so, and that's where, you know, if you are struggling with sleep, and many people have commented on that, we really want to dig in further to help you. And I commented on one simple nutrient that while I can't prescribe or say, or we can't prescribe, I did feel comfortable saying magnesium is a good thing taking in the evening, right?
Yeah.
And magnesium is a supporter of your antioxidant pathways. It's interesting to know that you know, magnesium, I'll do my airplane talk, because
another analogy.
yeah, antioxidants, melatonin being one. So I'm now not prescribing melatonin necessarily for sleep, but more so for its antioxidant component and it's the regulation on the circadian cycle. And I think that's where our bodies and our brains and our hormones and everything is getting thrown off. Modern living is throwing us off. And so an airplane is a significant environment of oxidative stress. And so it's like a bubble of oxidants. And think about any flight you've been on, and so a longer flight. So that's a lot of oxidative stress, and you're using your antioxidants to quench. And then after a while, your glutathione pathway, that master antioxidant pathway, gets a little sluggish. It's like, oh, I can't keep up. I can't keep quenching these oxidants, right? And so then your antioxidant pathway calls on magnesium to keep it going. So just, okay, help me out, like come. It's kind of like when there's inflammation, your cortisol gets depleted, you call your progesterone down to make more cortisol. So you pull your magnesium in to support your antioxidant pathway, and then you get low in magnesium. And after a long plane ride, many people can attest to constipation, tight muscles,
restless legs.
Yeah. And so again, like supporting antioxidants and melatonin coming in, just nutrients for your mitochondria to work as they should. Help your body trust you again.
Yeah, and unfortunately, magnesium is one that we just don't get as much in our diet as we used to. We used to get a lot more magnesium from the soil, and we just aren't getting that anymore. So definitely that can be really helpful.
Yeah. So the M's, melatonin and magnesium for mitochondria, just simple basics. I love thyroid health. We could talk about this.
This could be a endlessly. Whole day.
Yeah. So we put thyroid in our energizing category because thyroid is your metabolism, your energy metabolism. And so the ultimate goal is to get enough T3 floating around in our system. And so while we start in speaking about this, I know there's a ton of thyroid questions. Just pop them up there in the chat line. Yeah. It'll be fuel for the end of our conversation where we answer your questions. So how does thyroid metabolism work? How does your thyroid impact your energy? And what is the difference between hypothyroid versus hyperthyroid? And how do we look at both? So let's go into a bit of a diagram here. And Kira, can you see my mouse moving around?
Yeah,
you can. Okay.
Yeah.
Learning Zoom share screens of okay, good. So this was the only picture I could get of a throat. And I think it's a little bit comical in a cathartic way. So this man holding his throat. Okay, so your thyroid. So your brain actually is what makes thyroid stimulating hormone. So TSH, and that's what we most often look at on blood work. And we want your TSH to be in a range of 1 to 2. That's for optimal. The higher it goes, that means the more sluggish your thyroid is getting because it needs more stimulus. So your thyroid stimulating hormone is going to increase. So TSH comes from your brain, from your pituitary gland. Okay, so you're starting to feel fatigued. Let's say it is your thyroid that your TSH will increase. So you might show on blood work a 4.0 for your thyroid. So you're needing more stimulus. So what happens when your thyroid stimulating comes down and stimulates your thyroid then secretes T3 and T4. That's what we want, right? So, and we ultimately want T3. That's your active metabolite. And so then T4, to convert, it will go down through T4 to become T3. So liver health becomes really important to thyroid metabolism. And so basically the regulator is this T3. If you're too low in T3, that's where you're going to feel tired, right? But on blood work, most often you're feeling tired, your T3 will be fine, because the part that changes first is your TSH. That's where we start to see that, oh, like your body's really trying to regulate the T3. So it's showing that it needs more stimulus of TSH. And the higher your T3 goes, the less stimulation you need. So someone in the chat line commented on their optimal TSH level being 0.2. And that's pretty low, but sure, that's where you feel best. And the risk is you just don't want to go too low to 0, because then you can really burn out your thyroid.
Yeah. And also because it depends on the liver function, like you're saying, and also digestive function too, because a lot of the T4 is converted to that active T3 in the digestive tract. So if you have a lot of digestive issues, and it also takes nutrient deficiencies, which we've talked so much about nutrients and antioxidants like selenium, zinc, vitamin D, iron, all of those are involved in converting the T4 to the T3. So sometimes on blood work, I've actually seen like really low T3 and an okay TSH, but people feel like crap because they're like not getting that conversion. Because again, like the TSH is happening in the brain, but you need those, every cell in your body is using the T3. So you need to make sure you're getting that peripheral conversion. So there's so many pieces to look at there.
The stomach represents your overall gut.
Yeah, there, exactly.
Yeah.
In the gut there.
So that's just a simple overview of how your thyroid works, how your thyroid metabolism works, and you will feel tired. One of our key markers we want to look at on blood work is first your TSH, even better if we can get your T3 and T4. And then, that brings in digestive markers like cholesterol, liver enzymes, blood sugars. They will all show us more, cortisol, about what's going on in your body.
Yeah, and that's a good point too to just touch on quickly, is that all the cortisol we've been talking to, that plays a role too, because the TSH is coming from that thyroid stimulating hormone, is coming from the pituitary gland. And that's where the same signals are released, the ACTH, to go down to the adrenal glands to produce cortisol. So everything's kind of coming from the brain. So when signals, everything starts up here. So it's like when signals are going, and it's all in feedback loops too. So like if one system is really out, it can throw up another system. So we often will see like cortisol, like adrenal issues affecting thyroid issues affecting adrenals, right?
Yeah. And going back to simplifying this, right? Simple steps. This seems like, whoa, our body is pretty amazing. Look what everything our body does, from little tiny mitochondrial cells to, how everything's interacting together. And think about your stress response, right? Think about how that feels. And it's like everything's going a little haywire in the body. And so the best starting thing you can do is calm your nervous system. Just, get back to calm, get back to basics, and nourishment. That becomes a common mindset piece, right? I nourish my body. I slow it down. I protect, I repair, I rebuild. And so you come in at one angle in this, in any angle we've spoken about, and it will have a ripple effect to other areas.
Yeah. And I love that actually, that even that mantra, like my body knows what to do, like my body knows how to heal. And exactly like you're saying, just by coming back to the foundations of what we're starting. And then yes, everything is interconnected, but in a good way too, because when you start balancing out one area, everything will start to balance out.
Yeah. I'm just remembering back to December, it just got, actually, my heart just started palpitating thinking about December. It was so busy, and I just was running all around. I actually started to feel a ball in my throat, just like a glob, right? And I wanted to test my TSH at the time just to see, oftentimes it doesn't direct right away to blood or correlate right away to blood work, but I was so curious to know, oh my gosh, what is my thyroid doing right now? It could have gone either way. It might have been really, really low, like TSH of the 0.2 or lower, or it could have been high. I wasn't feeling tired, but certainly stressed, and that I was just feeling it right there. But tune in, listen to your body, slow down, recuperate, and bring your body back into balance.
Yeah.
Okay, from TSH to, or thyroid to testosterone. And so remembering the pathway, I actually, when you really think about it, what we talked about yesterday as the calming, balancing hormones, that was really progesterone, cortisol, right? One side of the shower head water. And we're on the other side of the shower head water now. So DHEA to your androgens, to your testosterone, to your estrogen. So it's interesting. I've never thought of it like this before, but it's really, you have your calming hormone pathway and your energizing hormone pathway. And the okay, so oftentimes, Kira, actually share with us what we commonly see in practice, what you see in practice when either blood work comes back low testosterone, a Dutch test, chi test shows low testosterone, without knowing the person's symptoms. What do you think is going on?
Yeah, so I would definitely say for low testosterone, number one is what's here is libido for sure. When someone's having, or I'm going to expect, or if I see low testosterone, I'm going to expect that they're experiencing low libido, fatigue, like we're talking about, low vitality, trouble maybe building muscle mass with low testosterone. And then also, like, we want to make the point too that we will often also see high testosterone too, for sure. And so some of the signs of the high testosterone could be hair loss, hair thinning, unwanted hair growth. So you're like losing it where you want it and getting it where you don't want it. And then cystic acne. So those I would say would be like the two kind of sides of it. But for sure that testosterone libido connection is huge in practice. I'm sure you see that too.
Yeah, just exactly. And the number one thing that I go to, and again, COVID has changed this, but the number one tip for increasing testosterone is resistance training.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
A lot of times, so gyms being closed, different things, people are walking or they're doing a lot of cardio. And weight loss is a common goal, of course, and people really go at it first. They know they need to exercise. So they go to where they sweat, right? And then some people get discouraged because they don't want it. They just don't like that feeling, right? But really for hormone balance and support, it's going resistance training wise. So I have found over the last couple of months in particular, I'm constantly educating about, okay, stop your cardio, your long workouts. You've got to get back to shorter workouts and just weights. And
it can be fast, like high intensity. Yeah, like it can be a fast, quick workout, like a high intensity interval training, something like that, really quick can also help.
As long as there's some component of resistance in there, building your muscle mass, building your strength. And there's very anti-aging, right? So it's building your hormones, which then is protecting you against those Alzheimer's end stage, or not end stage, but concerns we don't want. And so bolster your hormones naturally before you even consider supplemental support or bioidentical hormones.
Yeah, and testosterone, we definitely see that decrease as we age too. So that's why getting that muscle resistance, the resistance training, trying to get that in, like start at any age, but just like building that in is so important.
Mm-hmm. And then buddy system wise, what are our buddy systems so far? So I'll say one.
And GABA.
Okay, so progesterone buddies with GABA. Estrogen buddies with
serotonin.
And testosterone buddies with dopamine. So our energy, our drive, dopamine's that neurotransmitter that guides that, and testosterone fuels dopamine. So both of those two are a team. And so, foundations, figure out how you can get some resistance training in your day so that you can bolster your testosterone, you can build your dopamine, you can feel better. Okay, what does testosterone metabolize into? It's coming. Oh, forward.
Next slide.
Forward.
Estrogen.
Move forward. Flow forward. Estrogen. So this is a snapshot of the Dutch results again, and testosterone metabolizing down into estrogen. And there are three types of estrogens: estrone, estradiol, estriol. And we want to be strongest in this estradiol. And we want to clear other estrogens, like this breakdown of estrone to our 16-OH and 4-OH. So I know it's technical, but just know that there are some estrogens you don't want. And liver health comes into play here again too. It will help you clear those unwanted estrogens. And speak a little bit more to estrogen dominance on this.
Yeah, so I would say that in terms of like signs and symptoms that we'll see when someone has high estrogen levels, so they could have frankly kind of really high, like, and if we were seeing them even on blood work or seeing on a test like this, we'll see those levels really high. They could experience like menstrual cramps, like really painful periods, really heavy periods, breast tenderness. It could be a sign of cysts. And then I will say that I equally see really, really low estrogen levels too. And of course, we see that more in that, you know, we expect it more in the perimenopause, menopause time, but really at any time of life, someone can have low estrogen. And in that case, you're seeing more of the hot flashes and night sweats, insomnia. We've talked a lot about sleep, insomnia, low mood because of that serotonin connection. So it's so important to build up that estrogen, but then also detoxify it through these pathways.
And this is what we're seeing in this result, right? If you can see my mouse going across. So this person is low, across the board for all estrogens. The 2 stars, you want to fall between the 2 stars. And so this person is in perimenopause. So they can certainly feel better by increasing their estrogen. And so think again to the metabolism, boost your testosterone to build more estrogen.
Yeah, and then to differentiate, like the estradiol, as we said, is the most potent and strongest estrogen that we have, and it is 10 times as potent as estrone, and then 80 times as potent as estriol. And estriol is actually one of the more common estrogens in pregnancy, but estrone, so that one's made in our fat cells, and so that one becomes higher post-menopause. So that's kind of where we end up creating estrogen. And so as women, we do need fat on our bodies for sure to make enough estrogen. So that's something else that we'll see with really, really low estrogen. If you don't have enough body fat, you're not going to make enough. So, and then there's that, the estrogen has that protective role in terms of keeping our body fat on our hips and our thighs and our butt. But that's protecting us because we don't want it so much around our like internal organs, which is what cortisol, right? We'll get into that, but where that can kind of move it.
The hormone metabolism too. So one of the things I love for in terms of advanced testing and what we see on this is the protective 2-OH, we want to be most dominant in, and then 4-OH and 16-OH, we want a lower ratio. So this person is great. And mostly we see this, but not always. Yeah. And then it just highlights, it doesn't mean there's an issue per se. It just means where we need to focus in to support the body for optimal health. And so this person is great on their 2-OH protective estrogen. And then, so see normal would be between 60 and 80%. They're actually even better. They're 85%. Yeah. And then their 4-OH is 7.2%. So a little bit lower, which is even better. And their 16-OH is 7.5%. So even better. So they've really, this is quite good. And so what we do when we look at these results is we see where do we need to come in at? Do we need to focus on building estrogen, clearing estrogen? The other thing that's really important is, so we talked yesterday that brassicas help to clear some of the estrogens, right? Did anybody try the Brussels sprout recipe? Side note.
So good.
And if we clear your estrogens too quickly and you're already low testosterone, it's like now there's a hole in the bucket. And you're just going to move your testosterone down to clear out, right? So sometimes we want to block or slow the enzyme that converts your testosterone to your estrogen so that you bolster your testosterone. It's kind of like how an antidepressant medication works. It works by holding your serotonin there and not taking it up as quickly to synapse. So we want to hold your testosterone where it needs to be and have a really balanced flow of testosterone down to estrogen. So there's a lot of factors we're considering for hormone balance. Coming back to cortisol. So calming cortisol is bedtime cortisol, restore so that you can recharge and wake with more energy. And so let's differentiate the morning and evening cortisol concerns. Because a big question that people have asked as we've said, is about sleep. And so people commented that their case in point, they've flipped their cortisol pathway, which means they're waking up with low cortisol. And by the end of the day, at the end of the day, when they're calm and at home and resting and whatnot, then they have this spike of cortisol. Now they can manage, now they can handle what's going on because maybe there's less stressors, right? And so you want to make sure your cortisol is low before bed and throughout the night so that you wake with more energy, right? You wake with more cortisol reserves.
Yeah, we want to remember that curve. It's high in the morning and then it's going down as the day goes on. So, and what we talked about was to increase it in the morning because it's actually the cortisol awakening response. So basically it actually kind of like spikes within the first 20 to 30 minutes of waking up. You want your cortisol to spike so you kind of wake up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And then as the day goes on, it's going to go down. But ways to support that is to get the natural light outside or using a blue light. I think someone asked in the questions as well about how blue light fits in. And so we have those like blue light boxes that people often use as light therapy for like seasonal affective disorder because we're not getting that light. So you can use something like that, but at this time of year, like you just open your blinds, you put your face outside within that ideally first 20 minutes of waking up. So you're really getting that awakened cortisol response. And then in the evening, we're working on the calming things and the darkness so that your cortisol can decrease and your melatonin can increase. Because for sure, I would say that's probably one of the most common causes we think of because there were so many questions about sleep is a dysregulated cortisol curve. So trying to get that curve back into balance, lower melatonin, which we've touched on, as well as the hormone changes too. So like low progesterone and low estrogen can both cause sleeping issues too. So kind of addressing all of those concerns.
Exactly. Getting your body back into rhythm, getting your body trusting you. So energy nutrition. I just saw one person's question about the Brussels sprout recipe and the nutrition document, and it reminded me we did not send that portion out in the email. So we'll include that in today's email. It's a really great PDF of some hormone supportive recipes to get flaxy, to bring up your fiber, to have micronutrient rich meals, which is really where energy nutrition happens. So you want to get healthy fats, proteins, plentiful vegetables, so plant-based diet with added proteins in several ways, but focus on micronutrients, right? Micronutrients, an avocado, for example, is a healthy fat, but it's micronutrient rich.
Yeah, and all those fruits and vegetables, like vitamin C, right? That's one of our favorite antioxidants. And that is in so many fruits and vegetables. So like peppers, strawberries, berries, all of those kinds of things. I mean, it's even in green vegetables too. So greens, those contain so many antioxidants because again, those are supporting your mitochondrial health and overall hormone balance.
And you'll notice the more nutrient dense your meal is, the less hungry you are. So if you have let's say you have a grilled cheese, there's not a lot of nutrients in that, right? You're going to feel hungry sooner. The good part about a grilled cheese is balancing out the fat and carb, but it's not micronutrient rich. So you really have to focus on just foods. When you have a choice of what you can add, choose whatever's going to add more nutrients.
Yeah, can't go wrong with the fruits and the vegetables.
And I know that we're going, okay, so this is our homework and then we'll open up for questions. So today, your energy mantra. Wear yellow. So we'll look forward to hearing those and to reviewing in the chat line. Then movement. Okay, these are my three favorite. No, resistance training is not my favorite, but it's so important. But my favorite practices to do that. No excuses. They're so easy and incredibly powerful. Dry skin brushing. Dry skin brushing is you can actually get a dry skin brush at a health store, or Loblaws, I'm sure, where all their expanded health areas now. But you can use a dry face cloth. And so you're basically rubbing from your wrists up to your heart on both sides, and then your ankles up to your groin area. And you're stimulating your lymphatics. And your lymphatics is your disposal system. So we're getting your circulation going. We're revving up your body to work as it should to clear toxins and move energy, move nutrients. So dry skin brushing just for a minute before your shower. And then when you're in your shower, hot, cold. So your normal temperature, warm, hot, whatever it is, just warm up and then do a cold blast, as cold as you can tolerate for maybe 10 seconds. And sorry, as I'm saying this, I have a visual of my partner at home doing this, and all I hear is, it's a warm bucket of water. So he says that every single time. It's his mantra. That's how he gets through it. So, but the cold blast is so invigorating. So say that in your shower. It's a warm bucket of water, but it's really cold. And then you go back to warm. And then you, for a minute, get comfortable again. And I find going back to cold on this second time is much easier and feels even, it feels good. And then back to warm. And then you end on a cold. So it's 3 times cold. You can even just start warm, cold. Try it. You will love this if you give it a chance.
Yeah, I have to say that I like the amount of energy you'll feel after, and like the mood boost after doing it. And even if you can't, sometimes if I'm really short on time, I just make sure I end with like 30 to 60 seconds of cold. And my mantra in the shower is, I can do hard things. I can do hard things. I can do hard things.
Amazing. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. And then going on to our micronutrients. So we want to see your super micronutrient antioxidant rich meals. And some people have posted them throughout the days, which is amazing. So you've added added components, and now you're showing us the super meal. And then in that document, the nutrition document, there are some really great micronutrient rich meals. We pulled in some healthy phytoestrogens, and we hope we've covered a wide variety for all taste preferences.
Yeah, and just think colors. Like if you're just putting different colors on your plate, you're getting those antioxidants in.
Okay, 3 minutes, but am I here?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't hear you for a sec.
Oh, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay.
So are we just going to try and zoom through a question before?
Yeah, let's.
So this was a question, a good question about having no thyroid and then being on Synthroid. So what's interesting about Synthroid is levothyroxine. So it is that T4. So in order to be activated, the T4 has to be converted into the T3. So as long as your numbers are like your T3 and T4 are balanced, then you can feel great on Synthroid for sure. But if you are still feeling really tired all the time, sometimes there can be a conversion issue. So then you just need to work on those micronutrients, making sure you have adequate of all those nutrients, and then even addressing things like stress and that kind of thing that can affect the conversion there.
I'm going to answer this one. My hormones have been out of balance most of my life. Now I learn about adrenals. It makes sense. Yes, my cortisol is backwards, plus 63 and no signs of menopause, partial hysterectomy. Okay, so my first thought when I read that is, makes sense about adrenals, but I want you to add, makes sense about mitochondria, right? So go to basics of, okay, micronutrients, antioxidants, stimulating your cells, your cortisol's backwards. How can you pull your cortisol down before bed? We talked about the blue light yesterday. Great to see some of the comments of what people experienced with that, of just stop it. I know it's really hard, and personally, I wasn't able to do it last night, and I actually always find it a bit of a challenge, but then exposing to a certain light, and it's the red light, I find that blocks the blue exposure. So in the face of challenges like that, there are other ways, and we help you with how you can find a solution. Shift work, right? You can mimic a day at different times of the day so that you have that proper cycle. But our first step with you would be to, how can we bring your cortisol down? How can we lower inflammation so that you can start to have restorative sleep? You can start to nourish in that evening time area. So it doesn't matter about hysterectomy when you focus on cellular health. I can't hear you, Kira. Am I? Say something. Say hello. You're muted now. Unmute. Okay. I'll go. Remember, some of us have no thyroid. I take Synthroid. How does my body produce energy and metabolism and all the other things thyroid does for the body? I'm tired all the time and can't seem to lose weight. Just yo-yo up and down. That's okay. It's great that you're on Synthroid. Actually, I think if there was one medication across the board that I think is really good, Synthroid is the one. And so how does your body produce energy and metabolism? It's the same way, mitochondrial health. And we would make sure your Synthroid dosing is enough to bring your TSH into that 1 to 2 range. And so sometimes we make adjustments there. We don't change the prescription of your Synthroid, but naturopathically, we do other thyroid support measures that can either support Synthroid or can be the precursor until you get to, or until you need Synthroid. And so you're tired all the time, you know, really learn more about applying the mitochondrial aspect that we're speaking about, the cellular health, the reducing inflammation, providing antioxidants. And so yo-yoing, and I mean, also mindset, get back to that. So really nurture your body, trust your body through the words and thoughts that you send for what your next steps are, for what your daily actions are. How do you know if your adrenals are fatigued? Okay, really great question. And also, how do you know if your mitochondria are fatigued, right? And so there's certain testing we can do, and from blood-based to saliva to urinary to temperature checking, and to even just looking at all the other cofactors. So we can look at cortisol, we can look at your DHEA, your testosterone, your antioxidant levels, and inflammation levels. So CRP is a measure of inflammation. So we look at all of it while we're factoring in what is causing your fatigue. So key things, we will look at your thyroid, we will look at cortisol, we will look at inflammation, we will look at your antioxidant status, and other markers like liver health, cholesterol, digestive markers can certainly play a role. So tomorrow is all about assessment and creating that rhythm with all of your hormones. And we will get into reviewing some cases as well. And so thank you to those who have sent previous testing reports. We'll definitely comment on those. All of these questions we're extracting and we'll be commenting on them further. And so please keep sharing your energy. It's amazing to see. I hope some people have noticed when they do comment in, they feel connected. And so wishing everybody an energized day, share your mantra, tell it to yourself and to others. And then we will see you tomorrow at noon, and we'll be answering everything further on the chat line. Bye, everyone.